The night Claire Whitman opened her door, she was not expecting anything but silence. At 46, she had learned to expect ordinary nights, the soft hum of the heater, the distant cars on her quiet Portland street, the occasional bark from a neighbor's dog. But that night was different. A sharp, deliberate knock echoed through her small living room, making her pause. Her first instinct was to ignore it. She wasn't used to surprises, and she certainly didn't need complications. But the second knock was more insistent, and against her better judgment, she moved to the door. When she opened it, she found a young man standing there, rain-soaked and holding a small toolbox, looking unsure but polite. He had a kind face, with brown eyes that seemed steady and honest, and hair that was damp from the sudden drizzle. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you this late," he said, voice calm, respectful. "I just moved in next door, and my power keeps going out. The landlord said you might know where the old breaker is." Claire studied him silently. He looked young, probably in his mid-20s, full of energy that hadn't yet been tempered by life's disappointments. He wasn't intrusive or demanding. He just needed guidance. Something about his presence felt deliberate. She took a deep breath. "I know where it is." "Come in," she said. As he stepped inside, the warmth of the house contrasted with the cold rain outside. Her home was quiet and orderly, a reflection of her life after her marriage ended years ago. The room smelled faintly of lavender and old books, a scent that had become comforting, a shield against the loneliness that sometimes crept in at night. She led him down to the basement, the stairs creaking under her feet. The basement light flickered, casting long shadows on the walls, and she felt oddly conscious of him behind her. Not in a threatening way, but in a way that made her aware of her own presence before she pointed to the breaker. She spoke almost as a warning. "You should know. I'm older than you." Ethan, as he introduced himself moments before, didn't laugh. He didn't act startled. He simply nodded. "I noticed," he said quietly. "That's okay." Claire stopped, turning to meet his gaze. There was no mockery, no hesitation, only honesty. And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was recognition and acknowledgement that sometimes connections form in unexpected places. They found the breaker quickly. The lights flickered back on. Ethan worked carefully, respectful of her space. When the work was done, neither rushed to leave. They lingered for a brief moment in the quiet hum of electricity restored. And Claire realized she was aware of every detail. The way his jacket clung slightly from the rain. The faint smell of the rain itself. The calm steadiness in his eyes. On his way out, he paused at the door. "Thank you," he said. "If you ever need help with anything, I live next door." Claire closed the door and leaned against it, heart beating faster than she expected. Not with fear, not with longing, just awareness. Something in that brief encounter had unsettled her, in a way she hadn't realized she needed. The following days brought small, unplanned interactions. She saw him at the mailbox, then at the corner cafe, then occasionally in the street. Each encounter was brief, casual, but left a subtle imprint. He never acted flustered by her age. He never treated her like she was fragile or out of place. He simply listened, spoke, and existed alongside her in a way that felt easy yet charged with quiet energy. One evening, he appeared with a loaf of bread he had baked himself. "It's probably terrible," he said, laughing nervously. "But I thought I'd share it before I eat it all." Claire laughed despite herself and let him in. They sat at opposite ends of the couch, the air between them comfortable, like a space intentionally left for honesty. They talked about mundane things at first, the city, neighbors, work, but gradually the conversation deepened. He spoke of moving to a new city, the loneliness of starting over, the awkward excitement of unexplored streets. She shared the quiet of routines, the solace of solitude, the lessons learned from a marriage that ended without bitterness, but left its mark. At some point, a silence fell between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with unspoken understanding. He admitted softly, "I don't want to make this weird, but I like being here." Claire swallowed, aware of her own heartbeat. "It already is weird," she said, "and that scares me." He nodded. Me too. No one moved closer. No one touched. They allowed the moment to exist as it was, fragile and honest. That restraint, Claire realized, mattered more than any bold gesture could have. After he left, Chase stood alone, staring at the door long after it clicked shut. Her mind was restless. Questions she thought she had resolved years ago surfaced again. Would this connection work? Would it fade? Could she let herself hope again? Days passed. Their connection grew naturally, without force. Walks together became longer. Conversations ventured into personal territories carefully. Claire discovered that Ethan listened more than he spoke, that he respected pauses, that he didn't chase fleeting thrills but sought understanding. One night, under a pale moon on her porch, he finally spoke what hovered between them. I know the age difference is obvious, he said. People might judge, but I don't feel uncertain about you. Feel? Claire's chest tightened with a mix of fear and something she couldn't name. I don't want to be someone's mistake, she admitted. You wouldn't be, he said softly. You'd be a choice. For a moment, they stood in silence, a gentle tension filling the air. He stepped closer, slowly giving her room to step back if she wished. She, D-I-D-N, single quotes T, nothing dramatic happened that night. No promises, no rush, only presence and honesty. That simple act of being there, of stepping into her life without hesitation, meant more than words could convey. As Claire closed the door afterward, she leaned against it, breathing in deeply. Hope stirred quietly in her chest, not loud or demanding, just enough to let her know that perhaps life could offer something unexpected. Tender and relevant at this stage for the first time in years. She wasn't thinking about what she had lost. She was thinking about what might still be possible, and somehow that thought carried a quiet thrill. A whisper of possibility she hadn't felt in a long time. From that night on, every knock, every glance, every shared smile carried weight. They didn't need grand gestures. They didn't need the world's approval. They only needed to recognize what was their honesty, connection, and the courage to step into a space where something new could grow. Slowly, carefully, but undeniably. And Claire knew, deep down, that Ethan would return. Not out of convenience or curiosity, but because he had chosen to step inside. And sometimes, she realized, that was all anyone really needed to be chosen. To be acknowledged, to have someone see them fully. And still decide to stay. The door closed behind him. But the echo of his presence remained, filling the quiet corners of her home. And her heart with a new kind of light. Claire never expected to feel a spark again. But the first time she saw Ethan standing at her porch with that shy, uncertain smile, she realized the quiet of her life had been missing something. That night the rain had stopped, leaving the air crisp and fresh. And he held a small bouquet of wildflowers picked from the edge of the street, imperfect but thoughtful. She opened the door before he could knock, her heart skipping in a way it hadn't in years. I thought you might like these, he said, holding them out with careful hands. His eyes met hers, steady, warm, patient. They reminded me of Yukon, thoughtful and alive. Claire laughed softly, a sound she hadn't realized she had missed making. Thank you, Ethan. That's very sweet. She stepped aside, letting him in, and felt the room seem brighter just because he was there. From that evening, their encounters grew bolder without ever feeling reckless. They shared meals, sometimes simple sandwiches, sometimes takeout. Sitting across from each other at the small kitchen table, conversation flowed easily. They spoke about their pasts, each revelation carefully given and received. Ethan talked about leaving behind cities where he had no roots, about searching for stability and honesty. Claire spoke of her marriage, the quiet heartbreak. The moments she had learned to hold her own heart steady, there was attraction. Yes, but it was the kind that lived in glances. Pauses and laughter that lingered longer than necessary. They respected boundaries, aware of the age difference and what the world might say. But inside her home, all of that faded. The connection felt real, grounding. Like the first sip of tea after a long day, One evening, Claire suggested they watch a movie. She had a collection of old classics. She loved black and white films with simple stories, unhurried and gentle. Ethan agreed with enthusiasm. They settled on the couch, blankets tucked around their shoulders, the room quiet except for the soft glow of the screen. He didn't reach for her hand, didn't lean too close. He stayed present, attentive, like he understood that comfort mattered more than rush. As the movie played, they spoke in low tones, sharing observations, small jokes, and reflections. Claire realized she was laughing more than she had in years, and Ethan's smile was constant, never forced, always patient. She noticed the way he listened, the way he nodded without judgment, the way he seemed to genuinely want to understand her world. Days turned into weeks. Each encounter, each shared moment felt intentional without being forced. They walked together in the evenings, the cool air brushing their cheeks, leaves crunching underfoot. Conversation became deeper, more personal. Claire began to trust him with small secrets, memories she had kept to herself for years. He offered nothing but understanding, nothing but presence. One afternoon, while organizing books on her shelf, Claire found herself laughing at a memory she hadn't shared before. Ethan was perched on the edge of the couch, watching her with an attentive curiosity that made her heart swell. "I never realized you could laugh like that," he said softly. "It's beautiful." She paused, feeling warmth rise in her chest. "You make it easy," she admitted. "It's been a long time since someone made me feel this. Safe." Ethan's expression softened. "That's because I mean it," he replied. "I want you to feel safe and happy." Their bond was growing, quiet but undeniable. Claire began noticing how small gestures affected her, how a simple smile from Ethan could lighten her entire day, how his presence alone could make her feel seen. And slowly, she realized she was beginning to look forward to his visits, not just with curiosity, but with genuine anticipation. One evening, standing together on her porch, the sky painted with the colors of sunset, Ethan spoke more honestly than ever. "I know the world might question us," he said, voice low, careful. "I know people will notice the difference in our ages. But I don't feel confusion when I'm with you. I feel clarity. I feel..." Right? Claire's throat tightened. She had feared words like that, but hearing them, she felt a strange relief. "I've been afraid of being someone's mistake," she whispered. "You wouldn't be," he said softly, closing a small distance between them. "You'd be a choice, and a choice worth making." The air between them shifted, not suddenly, but steadily, like a tide drawing closer. He didn't rush forward. He simply existed near her, giving her space to accept or retreat. She didn't step back. She allowed the moment, the honesty, the connection to settle between them. Over time, they grew closer without words needing to define them. There was comfort in routine, in shared silences, in the way Ethan would glance at her across the kitchen while pouring coffee, or the way she noticed him folding the blanket over her shoulders during cooler evenings. Love, or something like it, was forming slowly, carefully, without drama. Without pressure, one weekend, they decided to take a short drive along the coast. The ocean air was sharp, the waves crashing rhythmically, matching the unspoken rhythm growing between them. They spoke of dreams, of hopes, of fears. Ethan shared stories of past disappointments and relationships, lessons learned, and what he sought now. Claire revealed memories of her younger self, choices she had made, lessons life had taught her. Each story strengthened their connection. Each truth shared became a thread binding them closer. On the drive home, they stopped at a small overlook, the lights of the town below twinkling. Ethan turned to her, face illuminated by the soft glow. "I don't care about the age difference," he said firmly. "It doesn't matter to me. What matters is us, what we feel, what we choose." Claire felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had spent years guarding herself against vulnerability, against the possibility of being hurt again. And yet, here was someone, patient and understanding, who didn't rush her, didn't demand more than she was ready to give. "You make it so simple. And yet, it's terrifying," she admitted. "Because it's real," he said. "And real things are never without fear." but they're worth it. Back at her house, they lingered on the porch a little longer, sharing the quiet, letting the night wrap around them. There was no urgency, no expectation, just presence, just understanding, just the knowledge that they were both willing to step into something fragile and see where it might go. Weeks turned into months. The connection deepened with every shared meal, every conversation, every quiet evening spent side by side. Friends began to notice subtle changes. Claire's laughter came more easily. Her eyes held a new spark. Ethan carried himself with calm confidence, as if tethered to something meaningful. Even in the face of uncertainty, they chose honesty. They spoke of fears openly, what others might think, how the age gap could become a source of doubt, how life could challenge them. But every conversation ended with understanding, with reassurance, with a silent agreement that their bond was stronger than any external judgment. One rainy evening, they found themselves on the couch again. Blankets around them, the room dim and warm. Ethan reached for her hand, not pressing, not demanding, simply offering. Claire accepted, feeling the weight of years of loneliness lifting, replaced by trust, connection, and something gentle but undeniable. "I never thought I'd find this again," she said softly. "Someone who sees me, really sees me. I've never wanted anything less," he replied, squeezing her hand lightly. They both knew the road ahead wouldn't be simple. Life would ask questions, neighbors might whisper, friends might doubt. But in that quiet living room, in the gentle touch of hands, in the warmth of honest conversation, they understood something vital. They had chosen each other, not out of convenience, not out of curiosity, but out of a shared willingness to face uncertainty, to be vulnerable, and to step into a connection that promised depth, respect, and care. That night, as Claire closed the door after Ethan left, she smiled quietly to herself. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years, a belief that love real steady and patient could come unexpectedly, even later in life. And she knew without doubt that Ethan would return, not because it was easy, but because he had chosen to step into her life fully. Honestly and without hesitation, the quiet of her home no longer felt empty. It was filled with possibility, anticipation, and the gentle, steady warmth of a connection built on trust, understanding, and the courage to follow the heart where it led. And for the first time in a long while, Claire welcomed the night, knowing it held promise, hope, and the beginning of something enduring.